Mr. President, before beginning my remarks today about the requirement for a larger Navy, I do want to extend my deepest condolences to the loved ones of those who lost their lives aboard the USS Fitzgerald recently. During Saturday morning's early hours, the USS Fitzgerald, a guided missile destroyer, collided with a Filipino merchant ship off the coast of Honshu, Japan. The Fitzgerald sustained significant damage, including the rapid flooding of 3 compartment areas. 7 sailors lost their lives. These young Americans were on board because they chose to serve their country. And they are heroes whose names are added to the list of those who will be forever honored by our country. Questions remain about the collision, and I'm hopeful they will be answered soon. Administrative and safety investigations into this tragedy are already underway, but we cannot change the horrific turn of events that occurred at 2 a.m. off the coast of Japan. Our hearts go out to the loved ones dealing with the grief this accident has caused. We wish a quick recovery to those who were injured, and our gratitude goes to the many sailors who acted swiftly and resolutely to save lives and prevent further damage aboard. Now, let's talk about the size of our Navy's fleet. The current fleet has 276 ships, but the Navy's requirement is now for 355 ships, a figure supported by congressionally mandated future fleet architecture studies. Last week, I spoke on the floor about the national imperative to build a larger Navy. I outlined the critical missions our Navy performs every day to help secure the country's vital interest. I also described an intense naval competition with our real and potential adversaries. This is a competition that America cannot afford to lose, Mr. President. America needs a bigger Navy. How do we get there? Related to that question is when we get to a 355 ship fleet. According to the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral John Richardson, we should reach our 355 ship objective in the mid-2020s. To do that, we should have started yesterday. Building and sustaining technologically advanced ships is a long-term national project. It cannot happen overnight. It takes years. As chairman of the Sea Power Subcommittee, I intend to lay a firm foundation this year to help support a buildup. Based on my subcommittee's work, I'm convinced Congress has a critical role to play in determining how we get to 355. All options should be on the table. Here are 4 ideas to consider. First, ramp up hot production lines. The Navy's accelerated fleet plan states that over the next 7 years, the shipbuilding industrial base can support building more ships than currently planned. The Navy plans to build 59, but the shipbuilders can actually complete 88. We should do this. Many hot production lines have excess capacity. Congress should authorize the Navy to buy in bulk using multi-year and block buy contracts. These contracts would help solidify the skilled workforce, stimulate suppliers, and drive down costs. We can also authorize advanced procurement funding to buy long lead timepieces and parts. Number 2, extend the surface life of ships in the fleet. A quarter century ago, the Navy had 450 ships and deployments that averaged 167 days. Now the average deployment exceeds 200 days. In other words, the Navy is smaller, but the tempo of its operations has accelerated. An extra month of deployment puts additional wear and tear on ships, and this can force early retirement and ultimately squander taxpayer dollars. Better maintenance can extend ships' service lives, delay retirement, and help us reach the 355 ship goal faster. I applaud the President's budget request for fully funding ship depot maintenance. We must build new ships and maintain the current fleet better. Recent speech to the Naval War College, the CNO, Admiral Richardson, noted that extending the lives of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers could help the Navy reach the 355-ship objective 10 to 15 years earlier. The commander of Navy Sea Systems Command, Vice Admiral Thomas Moore, agreed with the CNO in a recent speech where he stated that proper maintenance would extend the service lives and help grow the fleet more rapidly. Number three, we can reactivate ships in the ready reserve fleet. During the Reagan buildup, the Navy brought ships out of mothballs, including battleships with massive guns, to help grow the fleet size. The Navy should look at the reserve fleet ship by ship to determine if any can be restored to operational status. In his Naval War College speech, the CNO revealed he is considering bringing some retired Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigates out of mothballs. Vice Admiral Moore also suggested examining the merits of returning some logistics ships to the force. Reactivating retired ships does not simply mean bringing back less capable ships. Jerry Hendricks and Robert C. O'Brien wrote in Politico in April that reactivated ships could be outfitted with modern missile systems and potentially cutting-edge electromagnetic railguns and directed energy weapons. In other words, reactivated ships could perform completely different and relevant missions at a fraction of the cost of new construction. And fourth, we can develop and deploy unmanned maritime systems. The fleet of the future will include new types of ships. Again, according to the CNO, there is no question that unmanned systems must also be an integral part of the future fleet. Unmanned undersea and surface ships can offer significant advantages, such as the ability to conduct persistent operations. We have seen drones revolutionize combat from the skies. The same is possible on the seas. I believe the Navy needs a dedicated range to test unmanned systems with other manned and unmanned platforms, while also training new operators and maintainers. I applaud the Navy for including substantial R&D funding for unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, in its unfunded priorities list. I am hopeful Congress will provide the resources necessary to rapidly develop and deploy new unmanned systems. To conclude, we should be considering all options for building up our naval capacity. I do not dismiss the fact that these options cost money, and some are controversial, but they deserve to be explored. It would be irresponsible for Congress not to do the work now to ensure that the Navy of the future has what it needs to respond to challenges and fulfill its missions. This means 355 ships, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to set this imperative national project into motion. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.